This is Behind the Repairer, episode 2 of the podcast from Fix Auto UK.
Welcome along, James here with an episode that starts with a health warning. Prepare to be shocked by what you're about to hear, especially if your information security systems aren't quite as tight as they could be. In a moment, we'll be joined by Jason Hart from Fresh Security, who's offered to demonstrate just how easy it can be for the bad guys to find their way into your sensitive business information. Although cyber attacks are happening all the time across every business sector, the good news is that it's something you can guard against with a few simple but effective precautions. First off though, data security and a journey through to the wrong side of the firewall in the company of Jason Hart. Jason is a visionary in the world of cybersecurity, a member of the highly influential Forbes Tech Council and CEO of Fresh Security. I caught up with Jason recently and he first told me what he was hoping to achieve.
Yeah, really my objective of today's podcast with yourself is really twofold. One, to try and provide awareness to the listeners, give them some hints and tips. And also, during the podcast, James, is to show you how easy and how simple it is for attackers or disgruntled individuals to gain access to sensitive information, which they can use to conduct attacks against the listeners.
Let's just find out a bit, who are these guys who are trying to get in?
The misconception is, most organisations, individuals think, and small businesses and large businesses believe that they're not susceptible, or why would someone attack them or try hack into their organisation. There are multiple reasons why individuals, and we can discuss those individuals in a second, would want to access a business. So let's start why. Why do they do it? First of all is they do it for self-gratification. They do it because they can. They would happen to come across some usernames and passwords that have been compromised in a previous attack and then use them against the business or the organisation, gain access into the business. Another reason would be they could be scanning the internet and come across a business and they see there is a security vulnerability or a problem, and they would just exploit it because they can, because it's easy. The other reason, motivation, would be because they're disgruntled. The disgruntled element could be a disgruntled employee, so that's the internal attack. It could be a disgruntled customer, who maybe had some work done on a job on their car and they weren't happy with the outcome, or they weren't happy with the outcome of the insurer, etc. So they may have an element of a hobby from a cybersecurity or a hacking point of view and start conducting intelligence and trying to attack that organization. And then you have people talk about the state-sponsored element where country on country. Yes, it does happen, but the higher probability is disgruntled individual or an individual for self-gratification reasons.
And before we turn to the screen then, let's just find out a bit more about you, an ethical hacker.
Yeah, so started off at a very young age, founded one of the world's first ethical hacking companies. I was an ethical hacker myself. Ethical hacker means someone who has permission to gain access to organizations with their permission. People may hear of black hats. Black hats are the bad guys, white hats are the good guys. So I was a white hat. So during my career, since the past 20 plus years, I founded and invented security technology to prevent hackers from gaining access. And up until recently, I was the global CTO and head of strategy for one of the largest cybersecurity companies in the world. However, I felt it was time for me to go back and do a startup with the key objective of solving problems for all organizations and all businesses. The problem with the cybersecurity industry today is it seems to be becoming more complicated and even more expensive. So my key objective of my new startup, Fresh Security, is to make security accessible to everyone and take the very technical element and make it extremely easy for anyone to understand and allow people to consume a service that is affordable and accessible to everyone. So that's my key objective.
Understanding that then, let's now head online. Talk us through what you're going to do, because I think we might have a few little bumps and shocks in the next few minutes.
Yeah, so what we're going to do here, James, is we're actually going to use the Fresh Security service. And the key objective in the initial first phase of our service is for the service to identify key individuals in any organization or any business that are highly susceptible to a cyber attack. So the type of cyber attack could be a phishing attack. It could be password reuse. So what we're going to do, we're going to type in the domain of anyone with Fix Auto. What it will do, it'll go out, gather the intelligence, present that information back to us, and show us those individuals who are highly susceptible. But not only that, it will also show us individuals of where their username and passwords have been compromised. So that's what we're going to do right now, real time.
Go for it then.
So we're going to log right in now. We've typed in the initial parameters, which takes literally seconds to do. And right away, what we've identified is 197 lost accounts. This just shows you the extent of the invisible threat to an organization. This can be used against any organization, but we can see the latest breach where credentials for an individual with Fix Auto was compromised, but obviously they would have been informed since then, was the 16th of October, 2019. If we start clicking around on the portal here, we can actually identify who the riskiest users are across Fix Auto. And obviously, because Fix Auto are using the service, they're making the appropriate changes on the back end. The service itself will do a weekly report identifying any new changes, any new individuals that have been compromised across the organization.
And would you say this is typical of any organisation seeing something like this?
Yeah, so the beauty of what we're doing, and again with the Fresh Security Service, was this type of technology is not accessible to most organisations, maybe the top 5 or top 10% of organisations in the world. So we've created a service to make it accessible to anyone. To answer your question, is this common? 100% common. The problem is, if a bad guy's compromised a username and password, most people don't even know that the bad guys actually have that. So how did they get the username and password? They could have conducted it by a phishing attack. They could have, the employee within the organization could have registered to an online service using a username that they would use in their business and also using the same password they use in their business life or personal life. Because of the service they've registered to online has been compromised unbeknown to them, that detail is trading on the dark web. So what we're doing, we're bringing all that to the surface and presenting it in a way that any organisation has visibility of it and then can take corrective action.
What we're looking at there are email addresses. There are lots of systems at work in your everyday modern repair shop, such as a Fix Auto Centre. What other things? I'm just thinking like Bluetooth or devices that are connected that aren't just straightforward on the email system. How at risk could they be?
If we just look at what we use an email address for, the email address is used as a username. And we need a username today to log into everything. So if you look in a body shop, they're logging in and out of different applications, different systems. Those applications and systems require a username and password. That username and password is the email address plus the password that's been compromised. So, for example, the password that the individual is using for their username, the likelihood is they're using the same password in other systems as well. So the point is, by the bad guy having the email address and the password, they can essentially gain access to systems which they shouldn't be allowed to.
That was Jason Hart, and we'll rejoin Jason a little later in the programme. And we'll be exploring issues relating to apprenticeships in the next edition. Time to rejoin Jason Hart as we continue to examine the world of cybersecurity, to consider how best to understand the threats a business may face and to be proactive in preventing any sort of attack.
When we look at cybersecurity, people just think about a vulnerability or an attack. But the best way for any business or organization to look at risk or cyber risk is to break it down into the following elements. Confidentiality. So in the event something was to happen, what is the impact of the confidentiality? For example, if an attacker was to get access to a diagnostic system, is there an issue around confidentiality or client data or a list of different customers that that could have an implication around the confidentiality of the data? The next one is what we call an integrity. Now, integrity is one of those risks which are kind of creeping up on us. In the first instance of a breach, you may not even know an integrity attack has happened. But just imagine this: if a hacker for disgruntled reasons, gained access to a diagnostic machine or a machine for tuning or making adjustments to a car. What if he was to alter the configuration settings or the thresholds within the diagnostic system, unbeknown to you? So now customers would come in, you're using the diagnostics tool or any additional tools to make configuration settings to the car. And now just imagine that the tolerances around brake adjustment in the main control unit in the car was adjusted. Just imagine the implications of that, what that could have downstream. So that would be an integrity attack. The third element is what we call an availability attack. So again, the attacker could come in, log onto the network, because on the network you're going to have diagnostic machines and other machinery or technology to use for the cars. What if he decided to disconnect it in a way that you can power the machine back on, corrupt the diagnostic machines? What would the impact be to the business for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year? And then finally, we have what we call accountability and an auditability. So in the event any of those types of attacks, a confidentiality attack, an integrity attack, or an availability attack was to occur, could you prove how that happened? Is there accountability? Is there an appropriate audit trail? So when you look at risks or cyber risks and the types of attacks, we break it down into confidentiality, integrity, availability, accountability, and auditability.
What other emerging threats would you identify, for the next 6 months or for the whole of 2020? Where are you focusing your attention specifically?
Yeah, if you read the press, there's this continual hype and FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt about the latest security attacks and advances. But for me, I've traveled the world, worked with some of the largest organizations in the world pre-attack and post-attack. 90% of all attacks that occur are because of basic security controls are not in place. So yes, there are advances, but those advances are very sophisticated attacks. If every organization around the world or in the UK was to focus on implementing the fundamental basic security controls and do that in a continual way, the world would be a safer place.
Jason, let's think then, what are the top actions that a business can do right now?
Let's start with the fundamental basics. First of all, in your organization, you need to create multiple pots. And you can do this on a piece of A4 paper or on a whiteboard. Create a list of every person that accesses your business. So that's employees, contractors, third parties, even remote people coming into the diagnostics machines. So create a bucket of people, just put their names down, or a list of the different types of profiles, contractors, third party suppliers, etc. The second one is create a list or a bucket of all the different types of data in your organization: financial, customer data, employee data, financial data. Some organizations may have intellectual property. So create that bucket of data. And then finally, I need you to create a bucket of what I call processes. What connects the people to the data? What portals do you log into? Do you have Wi-Fi? Do you have desktop computers? Do you have laptops? Do you have cloud services? Just create a list of all the different systems that people log in and out of and where the data is associated. Now, what I need you to start doing is create a little map. Connect the people to the system to the data. We've just done a risk assessment. So what we've done is identified the various flows of people, data, and processes. Really, really simple. Now, what we need to do is start looking and ensuring the basics are in place. Anyone accessing portals or applications or systems on the web, what type of password are they using? Are they using a password that what I call a static password? Does it change every 30, 60, 90 days? Are they using multi-factor authentication? Is the username accessing those systems actually in the fresh security service? In addition to that, identify who are the key individuals who are more susceptible to the phishing attacks. And then, more importantly, where you have static passwords, start replacing them with one-time passwords. By just doing some of those fundamental basics, identifying the people, the data, and the process will start giving you more of an insight to where the potential risks are. And then finally, What vulnerabilities do you have in your organization? Do you know what vulnerabilities you have? Do you know what, when patches were made, what are those vulnerabilities are? If you want to help and a hand on identifying those vulnerabilities, I can help you with some tools to identify those weaknesses or vulnerabilities in your business.
Jason, I think we're nearly there. We've got to the point where we can see what the problems, what the risks, the compromises might be, but we haven't solved them yet. Maybe that's where you come in. Tell us a little bit more about your role with the Fix Auto Network.
Now, there's a misconception that every risk, every vulnerability needs to be mitigated in an organization. And that's not true. A risk to your business is only a real risk if you understand the likelihood and the probability of it actually happening. And that's really what we have to do is distinguish what is real, what isn't real, what's fictional, what is, a high probability or a low probability of that attack happening. And that's really one of the key things that my business, Fresh Security, is helping, is actually providing visibility of what a real risk is and the likelihood or the key individuals across the Fix Auto franchises, highlighting the key individuals and franchisees that are more susceptible to risk and have a high probability of being compromised.
That was Jason Hart from Fresh Security. If you want to start a conversation with Jason, then you can contact him via his website, jasonhart.co.uk, or talk to a member of the Fix Auto UK compliance team. Well, that's it for this episode. Next time, we'll be sitting down with Mo Givian from Fix Auto Luton, where we consider a fundamental paradox. Every business and its people, its clients, its culture is unique. Yet there are really only two plot lines: success or failure. So what makes Mo unique? What makes him successful? Is he measuring the right things? Is he thinking big enough? Find out next time. And we'll also explore the whole area of apprenticeships too. So do join us for episode 3, coming to a device near you in May. But for now, from me, James Luckhurst, it's goodbye and thanks for tuning in.
You've been listening to episode 2 of Behind the Repairer, the podcast from Fix Auto UK.